Hello and welcome to Name to the Point editorial discussion by NIVAs. In this video, we are going to comprehensively discuss all the editorial articles from the Hindu newspaper of 22nd June 2024. Look at the editorial page of the Hindu. Today is a Saturday, so they have a detailed article named Ground Zero. So this article is not much relevant for us. It deals with a murder case that is unfolding in Karnataka. But we have three articles for detailed discussion today. The one is on the paper leaks, which is a governance question as well. Then we have an article by Pulapre Balakrishnan, an eminent scholar. He has written on the economic issues of India. Then we have an article on the India-Myanmar relations. We have another article on the Russia-North Korea pact, which we won't have a detailed discussion, but we will have a quick overview. Let's move to the articles one by one. First, let's have a quick overview of the Russia-North Korea pact. So Russia has signed a pact with North Korea. The pact is something on the lines of NATO agreement, where if there is an aggression on one party, the other party will come for assistance. So it's a mutual assistance agreement. So if you take Russia and North Korea at present, both have two things in common. One is both countries face sanctions. Second, both are at odds with the West. So in these two regards, both countries are having similar conditions. But you should be very clear that Russia is a country that voted against North Korea for its nuclear program at the United Nations Security Council. So even though North Korea was in alliance with the erstwhile USSR, both these countries were not having a very cordial relations in the recent times. But what changed or what led to the current scenario is the Ukraine war. So this is one of the major impacts of the Ukraine war, because during the Ukraine war, Russia was isolated with sanctions. Because of the sanctions on Russia, they had to depend on new allies. So if you take their new allies, it has a pattern. First, they bought kamikaze drones, which is an important prelims terminology as well, from Iran. Iran is a major enemy country of the United States. Then they strengthened their ties with China. China is also at odds with the United States now. And now you can see them engaging more and more with North Korea. During the Ukraine war, North Korea supplied Russia with ammunition, and Russia in return gave them food and fuel, because the supply of food and fuel from Russia to Europe was curtailed due to the sanctions. As a result, Russia is forming a new power bloc. So this is a very alarming situation, because a new power bloc like in the Cold War time is beginning to happen in the world. So we have to see the developments with caution. So as of now, this is the development. Let's move to the next article. As I said, this article is not relevant for you from the exam perspective, but I'll just explain what exactly the incident is. This guy, actor Darshan, is a superstar in the state of Karnataka. So now he is charged with the murder of a person called Renuka Swami. So this person is a fan of the actor himself, and he was accused of sending obscene messages to one of the alleged partners of actor Darshan. So he is supposed to have a relationship with somebody, and this person has sent a message, obscene messages to that person, and that has led to the rivalry between both of them, and that has led to the murder of Renuka Swami. And all these are allegations. The case is in progress. We don't have anything conclusive, but this is creating a storm in the media as well as in the state. So that's the issue. Let's move to the detailed discussion part of today. The first detailed discussion article is on paper leaks. As you know, this is the biggest issue in the country right now, something that is that must be discussed in all regards. We'll discuss it from the perspective of governance, because it is a major governance challenge. We'll also discuss it from the perspective of education. So what exactly is the issues? So when there's a question on paper leaks, you can actually quote these issues in the first place. What exactly are the issues? First of all, there are allegations about the NEET exam. What are the allegations? The allegation is about granting grace marks. That too was revealed after it was caught red-handed. Then there were marks given to candidates from a same center. All these things are in the public domain. I'm not going into the detail. The details are not relevant for us also. Just we can quote this as a case study. The allegations on the NEET exam. Then there were allegations on the JEE exam before. And very recently there is a cancellation of the UGC NET exam. Almost 11 lakh students wrote this exam. NEET was written by almost 23 lakhs. And when it comes to the UGC NET, the government cancelled the examination at Suomoto as a Suomoto measure. So there was no complaint raised by the students, unlike in case of NEET. But in case of UGC NET, there was an input given by the Home Ministry's cybercrime team. And based on the Home Ministry's cybercrime team's input, the UGC NET exam was called off. I think the CSIR NET is also called off right now. It is a news of today. So it is a Suomoto move, whereas in case of NEET, there is no move at. The government said that there will be re-NEET for people who have been given grace mark, which accounts for almost 1,530. But the rest of the students are facing all the problems. So this is the allegation behind this. We have 3 incidents to be quoted in an answer. When it comes to the governance part or the ethics part, it deals with 4 major issues. One is the breach of public trust. So if trust is breached, then these authorities that conduct the exam will be hugely vulnerable, because people, if they don't trust, how will they spend years and years on an exam if there is no trust on the agency that is conducting the exam? So public trust is the first thing. Then there is the issue of transparency, because all these exams and their allocations can be outrightly denied by the organization as well, saying that nothing has happened, because there is no transparent mechanism for an independent audit. In that case, there is a lack of accountability from the institutions, transparency from the institutions. Third is the lack of accountability. And in that case, you can call this particular incident into picture. In case of NEET, there are a lot of allegations, but there is not much action taken. In case of UGC NET, there is an immediate cancellation of the exam. So accountability is questioned in that regard. And finally, there is a need for certainty of punishment, because without certainty of punishment, people will keep engaging in activities like this. So under these 4 angles, this issue can be studied. This can be used as the way forward also. And one way the article suggests is by decentralizing all the possible examinations. So if you take the case of UGC NET, it was conducted by CBSE. Initially, it was an offline exam. Then when the NDA took over, it became a computer-based test. And now in the recent year, the exam that got cancelled, that was again an offline exam. So the NDA went back to an offline mode, and this is called into question now. So the possible way ahead is to decentralize all the possible examinations. Whatever is possible can be decentralized, so that there is no burden on a single agency to conduct exams at the central level or at a large scale. So that's the way ahead, and that's the takeaway. You can use these case studies, you can use these angles for the answer, and you can use these way ahead as well. Let's move into the next article, which is on the economic deficits of India. This article is written by Pulapre Balakrishnan, an eminent scholar. This is his analysis of the 2024 elections. He criticizes the government on this, and he says that the result is a product of the economic woes, and that is where the Indian economy angle comes into picture. So we are taking away the issues that he has highlighted. He says it is the economic issues that led to the current election result. Now, he says there are deficits when it comes to certain fronts. The first deficit, he talks about some deficits and he talks about its impacts. He starts with the impacts, because people immediately relate to the impacts, and their electoral pattern is determined by the impacts rather than the reasons. So first, let's see what are the major impacts or what is unfolding in the ground. The first is high inflation. Inflation was very high ever since the COVID times. It is high now for the food prices, driven by pulses. Then there is high unemployment rate. which is proved by the periodic labor force survey. The data from 2014 onwards talks about high unemployment rate. Then you have lack of nutritional security. The data by Food and Agriculture Organization says that 75% of the country doesn't have a healthy diet. So these are things that unfolds at the ground level. Then when you go for the reasons behind this, first there is a lack of physical infrastructure. Then there is a lack of social infrastructure. Social infrastructure means infrastructure that works towards the social indicators like health, education, etc. Physical infrastructure means everything that is needed for our daily lives like roads, transport facilities, etc. So lack of these infrastructure leads to these economic impacts. And what can we do? The author takes 3 focus points. One is the cold storage facility. If there is enough cold storage facility, there will be an increase in agrarian income. And it will also help the fruits and vegetables which are perishable in nature to travel long distances, which will help for the diet diversification as well. Then we talk about the Indian Railway. Nowadays, you know that there are 30 crore migrants who are traveling across the country for various jobs. And we have pictures of stuffed people inside train compartments. So at that time, prioritizing a high-end train like Vande Bharat is not the priority, says the author. There should be large-scale revamping of the railway infrastructure. The number of trains and the rail tracks should be increased to accommodate the large-scale migration of people to various parts of the country. So that is the second focal point. And finally, you have the strained water supply, which is evident from the mega cities like Bengaluru, where there is a shortage of water and there is a crisis unfolding. So there are many focal points. The author has taken 3 on which we can work on. This can be used as way ahead for your answer as well. That's the takeaway from this article by Pulapre Balakrishnan. Let's move to the final article, which is on the India-Myanmar ties. It is a direct topic in the GS2 paper. Myanmar is one of India's neighbors. We have a topic called India and its neighbors in GS2 paper. So what the political situation in Myanmar since 2021 is driven by the military junta. So there was an elected civilian government. This government was taken over by the military junta. Now they run the country, but there is a democratic resistance as well. The pro-democratic resistance has a political as well as military wing at present. The author criticizes India's position on this because India hasn't engaged with the pro-democratic resistance in the country. Instead, policy experts are advising to engage with the junta for India's diplomatic needs. The author criticizes that stance. The author also talks about the free movement regime along the India-Myanmar border, which India suspended in 2024. So those says that whatever India is doing now, China can do it better. What India's domains at which India stands out, that's where the country has to rely its foreign policy on. The author gives a 4-step plan for that. First of all, India has to use its credentials as the largest federal democracy in the region. So if we take the case of military supplies, China will be able to supply more military ammunition to Myanmar. But China can never claim the moral high ground of being the largest federal democracy in the region, which India can. So India has to use that credential and help support Myanmar for its democratic course, says the author. Second, India needs to immediately halt all weapon sales to the Myanmar military. So sources from within the Myanmar's pro-democratic movement accuses the Indian government of supplying ammunition to the military junta. The junta has already murdered 5,000 people in the country. So supplying arms to them is something that we shouldn't do on humanitarian grounds, says the author. Third, we have to open a humanitarian corridor. So recently Thailand opened a humanitarian corridor through which they are supplying aids towards Myanmar. So something like that can be done from the side of India as well, because we are Vishwa Bandhu, the ally of all the countries. So in that regard, we have to do this on a moral ground. Finally, we have to give asylum for the refugees as well, because yesterday we talked about the World Refugee Day, which was on 20th of June. So when people seek asylum, they are not here for the economic benefits. Rather, they are forced to do that because of their vulnerability. In that case, India is not part of the 1951 UN Refugee Convention, but still, India can accept them as refugees and give them the immediate provisioning measures. So this is what the article is all about. It will give you some insights about the India-Myanmar relations. That's the takeaway from the Hindu editorial of today. Thank you for listening.